Space and perspective. Introduction to space and perspective. Using only the contrast between light and dark, artists can create pattern, texture, depth, and form. They use light to make some objects appear to come forward on the picture plane, and they use shadow to make others recede. They can create the illusion of space, making the entire picture plane appear to be three-dimensional, an illusion of reality. Techniques such as layering, manipulating contrast, and adjusting the apparent size of objects can create the impression of space. Artists also use a mathematical system known as perspective to create the illusion of space, making objects appear smaller as space recedes. Creating a sense of space. In the section on shape and mass, you learned about creating the illusion of three-dimensional space on an object, thus turning a flat object into one with the illusion of mass. That same theory works across the entire picture plane. Artists create a sense of space and depth by changing the size of an object depending on where it sits on the picture plane. Large objects generally appear to be closer than smaller objects. For example, in reality, a footstool is usually smaller than a chair, but the artist may make the stool much larger so that it appears to be closer. A house might seem to be its proper size in relationship to a figure in the foreground, or it could be rendered very small and therefore perceived to be situated in the distant background. By layering or placing objects or figures behind one another, artists also can convey the illusion of space. In a cluster of bottles sitting on a table, some will be placed behind the others, thus establishing a sense of space in a room. Likewise, to make a part of an image appear to be closer to the viewer, the depth perspective of objects and figures can be intentionally contracted, using a technique known as foreshortening. Often, the information depicted at the bottom of the picture plane is foregrounded or perceived to be closer than the information shown higher in the picture plane. This use of space can function particularly well in large works created for locations where they are to be seen from a low point of view. Perspective. The mathematically based process, known as linear perspective, allows the picture plane to function like a window or stage set, giving the viewer a position in front of the image to create an illusion of reality. The technique was conceived and developed during the Renaissance and has been used as a device in the Western art world ever since. It can be used in conjunction with the other techniques for creating space that have been discussed already. In one-point perspective, the artist establishes a single optical focus in the far distance, called a vanishing point, at which all perspective lines converge. The vanishing point rests on a horizon line, whether that is explicitly delineated or simply implied by the position of other objects in the image. The vanishing point's placement determines how all the elements of the image relate to one another. A common example of one-point perspective is an image of railroad tracks, with the two tracks shown meeting at a point in the far distance. In reality, we know the tracks don't meet, but they appear to meet because they are seen from a foreshortened viewpoint, and the lines used to represent them seem to get closer together as they recede toward the single vanishing point on the horizon. When using perspective, lines that one would assume to be parallel, such as the opposite edges of a table, appear to be at angles. Two-point perspective uses two vanishing points, often lying beyond the outer edges of the composition. It is seen in more complex views, such as those including buildings or other masses seen obliquely rather than head-on. Some artworks have more than two vanishing points.